We need to hit some Wellington Phoenix key points before we depart the podcast arena. Starting with another centre back, Isaac Hughes, who you said was one of the best players for the Phoenix in their win over the Perth Glory in the Aussie Cup. Fantastic news for a player who had some tough moments last season, but as you've talked about, these youngsters are going to get better. And there's that production line on show, like Finn Sermon departs. Scott Wotton, has he departed?
Yeah, he played against them for Perth in this
Oh,
game.
big dog. But they've got Isaac Hughes. Who else was there? Centre back Sheridan.
Yeah,
And
Sheridan, Jaden Smith was the other one. So they had a back three.
I mean, they got a production line of defenders at the Wellington Phoenix, so shout out to that. What did you make of those three centre backs, and especially Isaac Hughes leading the way, because he would have been the senior defender in that group?
He was, and I kind of don't even really view him as a youngster anymore. I think he's had a full season as a first 11 player, and he played bits and pieces in the year before that. So this is really his third season as a regular squad member. But beyond that, he's like 30. I count 35 games. I think it is of A-League football at this stage. So I think he's just an established first team player at this point. I don't. He's not trying to break in or anything like that. And he did have some tough moments last season, but I thought they were only tough moments. You know, I think one of the things which you really can't underestimate this in a player who certainly last year he was still someone who was a youngster stepping up his first year as a first 11 player at the A-League, and probably someone who people didn't necessarily expect would be a first 11 player as quickly as that. um the kind of like the mentality he showed to like battle through those tough spots where, you know, there was that run where it was like every second week he made a mistake that led to a goal or something like that. But those moments were the only, like, he didn't drop his head after that. You wouldn't see him like shanking passes left, right, and center, knowing where you can tell sometimes that a player is dwelling on the mistake that they've just made. You wouldn't get that with Isaac Hughes, and you certainly didn't get that from game to game to game. And I thought he was outstanding at the start of that season. He had that sort of like slippery little patch for about a month or so. And then I thought he was really good after that as well, and in a less noticeable way because the team wasn't doing as well. But I mean, there's no doubt at all that he's coming in as their senior centre back for the next season. They will sign someone else, but that someone else is going to be someone from outside the squad. You know, it's the player who's going to be more pedigreed than Hughes. But Hughes is the guy who's there, who's like, I'm imparting the sort of this is how we do things here. This is how this team wants to play. This is what the coach is asking us to do. I'm the senior centre back here now because I'm the one who's been here for a couple of years working with Chiefy like that. Um, and he certainly has those kind of leadership credentials because he's a former captain of the reserves team as well. So I think he is someone who also will come in with a big season. We've seen what he's capable of, so it's not about can he do that. It's more like can he do that every week? Is the consistency is always that next step for players like that. And yeah, I expect him to be a very important player for the Wellington Phoenix this season. But you just look at that defense that was around him in that one, where you got like Lucas Kelly-Hield on one side, Schwan Loke on the other side. The other centre backs were Sheridan, and Sheridan's sort of in the same class as Hughes. I think he pretty much had a full season last year, so I think he's a level above. He's not new to this thing anymore. And Lucas Kelly-Hield neither. He's had a couple of seasons, although he's a lot of injuries last year, so he didn't play a whole lot. But Schwan Loke and Jaden Smith certainly are new to this. This would be their first kind of. They both got scholarship contracts last season, but neither of them have started an A-League game before. Pretty interesting to see them playing with three at the back there, though, especially when you know that they're short on centre backs because Wooden's left, and they haven't signed the replacement yet. So I wonder if that's not just like that could just be a make do with what you got, or it could be a recognition that this is actually a really strong area in the wider squad. Because I'm looking at who was it on the bench was Mac Monroe. So he played in the second half against Wrexham alongside Dylan Gardner. Dylan Gardner's been there in the academy a couple of years, and he's played at an under-17 World Cup for New Zealand and is a very good defender, and could make the case that when Jaden Smith got the scholarship contract last year, he kind of leapfrogged Dylan Gardner to get there. Dylan Gardner hasn't played for the first team, but he was in the Aussie Cup last year in the same role that Mac Monroe just did, a new substitute on the bench, like the centre-back cover. So you could argue Mac Monroe is also now just leapfrogged Dylan Gardner, and yet at the same time, Dylan Gardner was just back Saturday afternoon at Petone Memorial Ground, I think it was, on the turf there, playing for the Phoenix Reserves, captaining the Phoenix Reserves against Petone. They actually lost 2-1, but of course, half that reserve team was away with the first team for the Aussie Cup game. They were in Perth, so they had to call up a bunch of guys. Like, it was half the team that we saw against Wrexham in the second half, and half the under-18s who had also lost 2-1 to Petone the week before, interestingly. So I don't think that's a reflection of Dylan Gardner being a bad player. I think that Phoenix just have a lot of good centre-backs. And Mac Monroe is another example of someone like that. Jaden Smith is another example. Gardner as well. Matt Sheridan being able to play, certainly when they play in a back three. Matt Sheridan is a very good central defensive option. Maybe not so much if you're only going with two centre-backs. And then Isaac Hughes in the middle of that, you're going to sign another centre-back. That's on record. They've said they want another centre-back and they want an attacking midfielder. Only have one import spot, so I'm not sure which one they will choose the import for, and might depend on what kind of local talent they're able to find. Likely, probably an Australian guy in the mold of Carlo Armiento, I think his name is, the left wing that they signed, left wing, but also if you're going to be playing with wing backs, I'd imagine he is seen as someone who will play there rather than up in the front three. He'd be someone who'd play in that sort of wide defensive role, but because of his attacking capabilities, that wouldn't be a defensive role. So you'd be getting someone who can play in that wing back spot, who's going to bring a lot of like crossing and dribbling and just general attacking impetus to that role. Which I think they need quite a bit. Because if your alternative is Lucas Kelly-Hield, who did score a goal on the weekend, that was great, getting the wing back getting all the way up in there. But he's not a burst forward type of player at all. So you want to have both, I guess. You want to have someone who's a little more defensively sound, someone who will tuck in and link up, and you also want someone who's just going to burst through and create stuff like that. And it's notable if they have a lot of really good, strong central defenders coming through the academy. We've also seen across this Wrexham game and this Perth game that there's no shortage of speedy, skillful forwards as well, who are very good in counter-attacking situations. So Luke Brooks-Smith looked like he's ready to go to his next evolution already, based on what we saw in the 60-odd minutes against Perth. He was borderline the best player on the pitch, and if he wasn't, at least you could certainly make a case that it was when he got substituted off after about an hour that the Phoenix started to lose control in that game, and Perth came back into it and eventually equalised. So that's great. But Gabe Sloan Rodriguez also started that game. Nathan Walker's out injured, but he fits into that category too. Luke Supik had a nice promising spot off the bench playing up front, but he's also someone who he runs like a winger. He's not a winger, but he runs like a winger. He's a dribbler who likes to get in behind, running on and running with and without the ball. So that's clearly another area where they just, whether it's something they've looked for with their recruitment or whether it's just something that's coincidentally happened, or maybe it's something they're trying deliberately to develop with whatever players they happen to have. There's a couple trends there in terms of Wellington Phoenix youngsters. Like, they got big, solid centre backs. They also have pretty classy midfielders just in general. That's always the case. And when you have academy systems, that tends to be true, because that's the one thing that's the easiest to work on, is just everyone's working on their touch. Everyone's working on, how do you turn out of pressure? How do you pass the ball, keep possession? Where do you move, be an option, those kind of things. And they have, speedy counter-attacking wingers. So there's a few nice little trends there, and a lot will probably depend on how much these guys do level up between last season and this season as to how well the Phoenix do. But Luke Brooks-Smith looks like he's already there. And Luke Supik looks like there might be some potential there. Certainly all of those defensive players look like they're ready for bigger roles than what they had. So, and just the confidence as well of, I know they didn't beat Perth, but they did progress past them because of the penalty shootout. And I think having a lot of those young guys taking penalties and scoring penalties, all 6 of the academy players who took penalties out of the 9 who took penalties overall, so 2/3 of their penalty takers were academy players, and all of them scored. The only one who missed was the captain, Kazuki Nakasawa, who scooped one over the top. And this was a penalty shootout being taken in torrential rain as well, which got worse as the shootout went along. And it was the younger players who were at the back end of the takers as well. So they were taking them in the worst conditions and just slotting them left, right, and center. Past Ollie Sale, who didn't look like saving any of the 9 that he faced, which I remember he had a bad record against penalties when he was with the Phoenix. But also I don't want to blame him too much because he was probably standing there with like a storm gale and torrential rain blowing straight into his face. He probably couldn't even see the ball, you know? So I don't think I'm not going to judge either goalkeeper harshly for the fact that there were no saves made from, I think, 18 penalties taken. But there were 3 misses because 3 guys scooped them over the top.
How was his goal kicks, though?
Well, again, like kicking into a breeze for a lot of it, so it's a little bit messy. You want to see a good goal kick, check out the Chatham Cups. This isn't goal kick off the ground. This is just a goalkeeper kick out of his hands, you know, the old drop kick one. But Scott Basale set up a goal for Wellington Olympic on the weekend in the Chatham Cup doing that, where he's like, he gave it such a hoof that it went from one penalty area, one bounce into the other penalty area, and then just dropped on the foot of Gianni Bazoukas, who volleyed it straight into the goal. Like, it was as direct as you could possibly get, but enormous boot off Scotty Basale there.
I don't think we're going to see any long-range assists for Ollie Sale, but I am open to being surprised there. I counted 8 out of the 11 players as local juniors for the Wellington Phoenix in the 8 of the starting 11. So that was pretty cool.
The other 3 being imports.
And 2 things I want to highlight. I'm seeing a lot of Finra Conchi in these games. So I think that's just notable because he's got a bit of A-League experience and it's good to see him settling into a steady role. And I think we need to keep tracking how Sloane Rodriguez and Brooks-Smith are performing ahead of the season, like just regular updates about their mahi, because they are 2 X-factor players who can provide the Phoenix with a lot of attacking impetus. So I think, like you mentioned the defenders, but Loki and Conchi are 2 players that I'm curious about in that kind of, well, Loki's like a right-sided player, Conchi's in the midfield, and then just updating us on how Sloane Rodriguez and Brooks-Smith are going in this preseason period where they'll get their reps, but come season time, like one of them might be starting, but a lot of their work is going to be coming off the bench, adding impact to the Wellington Phoenix, and that's how
we will get some. It's almost out. We will get some Auckland FC tonight as well because they're playing Gold Coast Knights in their Aussie Cup game. So yeah, tonight, Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. They're all live streamed on YouTube, I think. So should be able to watch that. And yeah, maybe we'll be able to get a few notes in on the Thursday one as well and just chat through some. We'll see. I think they're less likely to lean on a bunch of youngsters because they have such a consistent squad from last year. Everyone's pretty much just coming back, so they haven't needed to make many signings, and they haven't needed to promote too many of their fringier players. But I think we'll see. You know, we'll see a couple. We should get some. Might get some Adama Koulibaly or a bit of Finn McKinley, or some of these guys might get some opportunities in these games. We'll see how that goes, especially because they are playing an NPL team, whereas the Phoenix were up against the fellow A-League team, even if it is the Perth Glory. Although Perth Glory been rebuilt a whole lot. And one of the ways they've rebuilt is by signing Phoenix players. So they had Sam Sutton, they had Scott Wooden, Nico Pennington was out injured, or else he might have been playing as well. He was a Phoenix player 2 years ago. And I didn't realize, but Adam Griffiths has gone there to be the assistant coach since he left as the assistant coach for the Phoenix too. So they've even poached a coach on top of that.
And I do see Fergus Gillian on the bench for the Phoenix.
Yep,
I
he was one of the
imagine
ones who scored a penalty.
he's the younger brother of Liam Gillian, who's playing for
That's
Auckland
the one.
FC. Righto, good
Yep.
stuff there. So that is the end of our podcast.